go. Here we go. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dreamcatchers podcast. I'm your host, Jerome. I've got the pleasure of having Billy Kills with me today. Billy, how are things in Barcelona, Spain?
They're a lot better now that I'm speaking to Mr. Myers. They're fantastic. So yeah, man, we're
We,
good.
we're hopping across the pond and getting the guy from Ohio to come in and share this amazing story. Guys, you want to buckle up these seatbelts. It's going to be a wild ride. We're going to go through this red pill framework, and Billy's going to show you how he's exited the matrix. And it's not the traditional matrix where the person left corporate America. If you look at Billy's profile on LinkedIn, it says happy corporate employee, right? But what he's done is he's figured out how to move over into Europe, learn how to speak over five. I think it's might be over five languages. I know it's at least five languages, and create a life where he's able to invest in the U.S. while living in Europe. So you guys are in for an action-packed episode. Billy, these people are going to love what you have to say. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Wow. So that's a lot going on, man. Right from the very beginning. I love it. I'm ready to rock and roll. Yeah. Best way to get in touch with me is through, just like you just mentioned, man. It's through LinkedIn. I'm sure we'll talk about some other ways too, depending on whether someone is really, really hyper and wants to talk. I've got ways you can get in touch there. And if you just want to kind of go to billykeels.com, you can find out a little bit more about what we're doing. But we'll share some more of that as well, man. Got a couple books and things like that. So I'm ready to rock, man. Let's talk.
For sure. So I'm taking a pivot on the podcast. I haven't really talked about the red pill a lot. It's our model for centered life. There's six layers: self-image, relationship, career or work, prosperity, significance, right? I might have missed one. Let me go back to it. Self-image, relationships, career, health, prosperity, significance. And everybody works through these. And we're going to unpack Billy's story. And you're going to see how this worked for him. And so, Billy, you made a trip overseas when you were younger. And I feel like you didn't talk to any of the people that were around the first go around.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about how the guy who grew up in Ohio now lives in Barcelona, Spain.
Yeah, man. So this is that's good work, man. It's good work. So you found out about this. So yeah, back in 1995, I had a chance to live overseas. I was going to school in Miami, Ohio, and Oxford, Ohio, Southwest Ohio. I'm a guy from Ohio. I thought my life was going to be all about Ohio. Thought I was going to work at Procter and Gamble and all that kind of stuff, and they didn't want me twice. Thankfully, because that changed the whole trajectory of my life. And instead of going to Puebla, Mexico, I went to Valencia, Spain in 1995. And I really said to myself, I wanted to learn Spanish. I wanted to come back after 3 months and be fluent. I was going to be fluent, man, after 3 months. And I remember getting off of the plane in September of 1995, get down off of the bus. Like we traveled from JFK to Madrid to Valencia on these flights. And then we get to Valencia and we take a bus and it's super early in the morning and we get off. And I remember getting off the bus and I spoke Spanish. I got good grades in college and high school and stuff. And as I got off the bus, there's this lady, the Spanish lady, like waiting with open arms and it just freaked me out because I realized, oh my gosh, I don't understand a word this lady's saying. I feel uncomfortable. I feel stupid, blah, blah, blah. Short story long, no, long story short. Over 3 months, I took the easy way out. And I said, you know what? I felt uncomfortable. I didn't like feeling stupid. I didn't like having the words here, but they weren't coming out right. The conjugations weren't happening. And so I took the easy path, man. I just hung out with Americans the majority of the time. On the weekends when they were traveling, I would kind of just hang out in Valencia because I didn't have the cash to really be traveling all over the place. And after 3 months, Jerome, I realized I was like, oh my gosh, man, I'd saved up all this money because I had to work hard. Like my parents couldn't afford to send me overseas. Like I got scholarships and saved money. And when that all happened, I realized, man, I worked so hard and I didn't actually come back speaking any Spanish because I was afraid to make mistakes, to look stupid, to actually take in the culture, which is what I wanted to do. And so I told myself at that point in time in 1995, I said, Billy, if you ever get another opportunity to live overseas, you're not going to mess it up. Like you're going to make the most of it. And so as good fortune would have it, after that, I went back to college, and I had this amazing job right after college, and I had a chance to work and travel throughout some 58 different countries. And that just exploded my mind, just like boom. And so after that, I didn't see myself going back to a normal quote unquote 9 to 5 job. And so I took a 1-year sabbatical, and that was back in September of 2001, 2 weeks after 9/11. And I was supposed to move to Paris. I got accepted at a university called the Sorbonne, or La Sorbonne, as they say. And I wanted to learn French language and culture. I wanted to learn how to salsa dance. Yes, I did say salsa dance. And I wanted to learn more about wine. And that was supposed to be 1 year. But I leaned into it so hard, man, that anytime I heard English, I just ran the other way, because I didn't want to make the same mistake that I'd made in 1995. And I met people, and I challenged myself, and I looked stupid, and I was conjugating things that didn't sound right. I sat at dinner parties, lunch parties, everybody's laughing. I didn't understand anything. And one thing led to the next, but I loved it so much, and broke through that frustration, broke through that fear, broke through that pain of, I know it's like crying in my 19 square meter studio in the center of Paris, because I couldn't really figure out how to get my utilities fixed. But that really changed my whole life, man. So I was fortunate enough, I leveraged some of the relationships that I had, or people were fortunate enough to take my calls, that people I met during those 5 years, 58 countries. I left Paris, moved down to a town called Montpellier, down in the south. Ended up then meeting a Spanish girl. Left, moved to Italy to start up a sales team there for the company I was working for. Moved back to France, moved to Spain in 2005, and I've been here ever since. Got married, 2 kids, and so that's really kind of what happened, man. And it started from kind of the not getting things right the first time, and not being afraid to make more mistakes and lean into it. And it's turned into 20-year expedition, 20-year, 1-year sabbatical, man.
What in the world? So how what gave you the courage to go the first time? Right? I mean, you go from I'm hanging out, getting good grades in school to I'm out of here. Had you traveled a lot with your fam?
No. We hadn't done any of that, man. I didn't even have a passport. But I remember I had a really amazing teacher, and I'm gonna give some shouts out to Melanie Ziegler, um, amazing professor in college, man. I'd taken some Spanish in undergrad, just because I'd gotten really good grades in high school, and I needed to fill some hours and credits and stuff. And so I was in this class, and she noticed that I had a talent that I was not really taking maximum advantage of. And so she literally stopped me after class, like, "Hey, listen," and she talked to me, asked me what I was doing, how I was doing this and that. And she's the one that planted the seed. "Hey, have you ever thought about actually perfecting your language and learning more? And I see you have a real talent for this." And I was like, whatever, I didn't think anything of it. And she was persistent. And eventually I was like, you know what? Why not? Never thought about it. She seems to recognize that something's here, and I didn't see it. And yeah, I was crazy enough to actually listen to her. Her thing was there was a program in Puebla, Mexico. And I thought that's where I was going to go. But then once I realized, like, if I'm going to do this, well, I'm not just going to go to Mexico. I'm going to go like far away. And so without really giving it much thought, I got accepted to a program through the University of Virginia and went to Valencia, Spain. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It
Okay.
was definitely not on the radar, man. Not on the radar.
So the teacher starts you on this path, exposes you, kind of opens your eyes to what's possible. And then you get across the pond. You don't really understand the language. I mean, you understand it, but trying to communicate is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Who showed up to help you along the way? We're getting into the relationships now, because this is totally different. You're a fish out of water, I think.
Yeah. Completely out of water. And so I had a roommate, this guy named David, and we shared a lot of time just talking and stuff like that. Um, and so the real relationships there were one. I did end up meeting some people there, just because I do like talking to people and meeting people and stuff like that, and ended up meeting a group of people. We did language exchange, right? But I never felt really comfortable because I knew the words, if I got all day, I could conjugate it. I got A's on my tests, but I needed to be able to make mistakes and do it in a place that was safe environment. So I did end up meeting, David and I met another group, and we had a language exchange. And so these were the ladies that we met. We did this language exchange, and they ended up meeting our host family and stuff like that. So I felt a little bit more comfortable with it was a language exchange where we met like once a week or twice a week or something like that. But those were the relationships that helped me kind of get into um, the local culture. But I still, if I look back on it, Jerome, like I didn't allow myself to really build relationships because I was too afraid. But what that helped me do in 2001 was realize that I had to rely on other people. I had to meet other people that were different than me, that had a different background than I had, because I didn't want to make a mistake the second time. And when I say make a mistake, meaning I didn't want to lose the opportunity to meet and learn about local customs, local language, and things like that. So the relationships that I didn't make in 1995 really helped me to be more curious and seek out new relationships in 2001 up until this date. Hopefully that makes sense.
It makes complete sense, right? And the thing that really stands out is that letting go, right?
Mm,
When we're
yeah,
comfortable, when we're in our own spot,
yeah,
we can puff out our chest and say, look, I don't need anybody, right? I got this. And you're in this space, you're like, I need some people and I need them quick because I'm gonna be in trouble if I don't.
yeah.
So what I haven't ever asked, but I think it's going to be pretty interesting, is you leaving and changing so much has put you in a spot where you probably lost some relationships that were pretty important to you because of the lack of proximity. So were there some like deliberate choices that you had to make relationship wise when you made this transition that made a big impact on your world?
At the time, yes, but looking back on it, it was just part of what was going to happen, right? At the time, like I guess because I'd been working and traveling in those 5 years, 58 countries, it was like I was always traveling 25 to 28 days a month. So I just got used to meeting people, hanging out. Maybe I'll be back, maybe I won't. And that became part of what was happening in my mind and then throughout my being, right? It was just quick relationships, boom, 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 boom. And so when I made that leap, leaving the US to move to Paris, um, I think the biggest one at the time, I had a girlfriend, but that was, I mean, that was just, that was a matter of time because once I realized that I didn't want to go back, it was something that ended, right? At the same time, the relationships that have withstood the test of time are the ones that I cherish the most. Like I never felt um like I had to not be in touch with people. I do remember my dad telling me on the day we're at JFK. I remember him saying, and I thought it was like, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. He just looked at me and he said, "Son, you realize you're not coming back, right?" And I said, "Man, I'll be back in a year, man. I'll be back in a year." And he's right. Like I have not been back. That's been 20 years ago, man. 20 years it will be in September of this year, that I've actually been living outside of the United States. And the relationships that I've had from back home, the ones that were supposed to last have continued to last. Some that lost their way have been rekindled thanks to technology. And I guess the ones that really didn't, they just felt good in the moment, but they weren't going to go beyond that. Just, I guess they've kind of fizzled out. But I try not to think about that too terribly much.
Yeah, well, I think what is important though is you bring up this concept of people sometimes are in your life for a season. Well, I think
Mm,
everybody's in your life for a season,
yeah,
but that duration of the season changes. And
yeah,
what you go through, whether it's spring, summer, winter, or fall, is some relationships just aren't meant for the whole time. And
yeah,
it's okay for some of them to end. I think a lot of people get caught up in this, oh, well, we were friends in high school, so now we got to be friends as adults, and we're on two totally different trajectories, and we can't actually help each other right now.
Right.
That thing I think is something that keeps people in the box, that keeps them in the matrix.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I don't know how many of my friends from high school are still following or watching what's going on, but I mean, there are relationships because we fundamentally are living different lives. Like, there's no point of reference. Like, I don't talk about what I did in high school. I mean, there are some things that were really cool and I use it, but I don't still live in that moment in time. And so just because there's that lack of the day to day, like it will be difficult. Like, if I go to my 20-30 year reunion, something like that, I'm sure we'll talk about those types of things, but it's kind of more of the question of, like, what are you doing living over there? Like, it's usually the types of questions that I get for people that I don't, or that I have not maintained contact with.
For sure. And so now we're going to move into the career space. And this is usually where people have their red pill moment, Billy. And so the question that I have for you is, when did you realize, like, I got to keep going? I can't go back to what it was. Like, this is when your eyes are open. You're like, this is different. And this is going to determine the rest of my life.
And so I want to make sure that I'm answering this, because the whole career thing is, for me, it's also something that continues to evolve. It's something that's important. So do you mean that I realized that career in a multinational is something that was important, or career beyond the multinational is what is the most important in your life?
The latter.
Yeah. So as you mentioned earlier, I consider myself someone who's very fortunate. Like, I am someone who is a happy corporate employee by choice. And that's because I've made a lot of difficult choices and focused a lot of my time and energy outside of that to build my own dream. Because one of the things that I recognized when when I was doing what I was supposed to do as the good student and getting the good job, climbing the ladder, and being able to then put my cash in someone else's hand. And I got hit once in 2000. I got hit again in 2008. And as my parents always said, if it happens, shame. If it happened once, shame on them. If it happens twice, shame on you, meaning me. And so it happened twice. And that was the point that I realized, I was like, I've got to take control of my financial life, because this is not a formula that's going to work for me. What I didn't realize was me wanting to increase my own cash flow, because that's what it started out as. It's evolved since then, was going to turn into something so much more. Right. And so when I started realizing that, wow, you know what? I've been doing this role in the corporate gig that I've actually enjoyed. I've been doing this stuff, but I actually found something that I can run towards. It's something that I'm using a lot of the same skill set that I've used to help me be successful in this corporate environment for over 20 years. I'm actually pivoting, realizing that, you know what, focusing on my family, my life, our well-being is something that is going to pay dividends forever. And then to go beyond that and say, hey, listen, we're not only this, but now there are people that we know, like, love, and trust, that want to find out more about what Billy's doing. And so I'm still using the same skill set, the same things that I've learned from the corporate, and I'm using them in an environment that makes sense for my family, myself, our investors, our students. And so you start to realize that, wow, you know what? I can do so many different things. And it's not tied to the promotion. It's not tied to the role. It's not tied to the salary increase, right? Because you actually gain more control over your life. And kind of the moment that I realized that that was going to happen was on my oldest son's 3rd birthday. I remember this is late October, and we're getting on I have to get on a flight. He's turning 3 years old. I get up early in the morning just so that I could see him, wake my wife up, wake our 1-year-old up, give him a kiss. We have a birthday party, like he opens presents, and I'm getting on a plane going to Frankfurt. I was like, no, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. It's absolutely not what I'm supposed to be doing. And so, realizing that I had the freedom to make the choices, I was performing, and then I started using all these same skills for the impact on like the people that I was telling you before. That was the moment that I realized things that had to change. And since then I've just continued to, be doing multiple things, right? And focusing more time, more energy on building this dream that is also impacting other people's lives that I know, like, love, and trust. Hopefully that, I don't know if that answers it exactly, but
That's
hopefully.
absolutely the moment. The moment is when you close the door, going to the airport on your son's birthday, and you're like, no, this isn't
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Hey, and I've got to create a plan to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Because if I'm not here for the most important moments, and it's really interesting because a lot of people who are successful, right? Successful in air quotes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
don't prioritize their family over their business.
Hmm.
And you said, no, my family is a higher priority, but my actions aren't showing that.
Yeah.
Right? That's the
Hmm.
light switch. That's the light bulb. Like, oh, but I
Yeah.
got to go do this thing because I'm doing it for somebody else and I'm building it for somebody else too. So let me go build my own. So
Yeah.
I'll leave that there, but I didn't
Hmm.
want the listeners to miss that.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah.
give me give me three of the smaller challenges that you face on this journey and how you overcame them, because building your own thing while performing at a high level is tough.
The biggest thing, the number one challenge was just fear. It has been fear up until not too long ago, right? It was fear, but fear of other people judging me. And I say other people meaning that are at the corporate where I work, right? That they're going to judge me because I'm in a high performance role and a high paid salary role. And I used to think, well, oh my gosh, well, what are people going to think if they actually know that I'm building my own dream, like that I'm investing in real assets and I'm doing it from Spain and doing that back in the United States? And will they think that I'm not as dedicated to this? And so for a long time, it kept me really small, Jerome. Like I didn't tell anybody because I was afraid to tell people because I didn't want them to judge me. I didn't want them to think he's not really focused on this. He's not focused on that. Um, and so what did I do to break through that fear? It took me a while, right? But I had a mentor of mine said, well, look, if you want to actually share more about what you're doing, then you should start using social media and stuff. And if you go back, you can go many years back. I used to put things on Facebook every once in a while, and it'd be these little motivational things. And that was like my way of getting out there and starting to at least share. I wasn't talking about what I was doing, but I was at least like putting things out there, right? And people would start to see. So I actually started taking action that way. And I mean, it's since then, I mean, I'm happy. I enjoy talking and telling people like you can work at a corporate job and at the same time you can be building your dream. People care about results. Provided that you give results, you can do the things that you need to be able to do, right? And if you can't, then you've got to figure out what's the best path for yourself. So the first thing I would say, without a doubt, is fear, and I broke through that fear just by getting out and telling people and sharing with people. And it's interesting what happens when you break through that fear. Actually, now, and many people wouldn't say that, but it's amazing the number of people that are actually asking me now what it is that I'm doing and how they believe that I would be able to help them. And so sometimes if you're in your own mind and you're in your own way, there's some really cool things waiting for you on the other side when you break through that fear. I would just say to anyone, number one. Second thing is the other challenge was paralysis analysis, right? Because I'm a recovering perfectionist, man. Got to get grades in school. And so sometimes when you want all of the all of the red lights or all of the lights to be green, well, they're never all green. So you're kind of holding yourself back because you're trying to figure every single thing out. And that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to know every single part of everything because that's what I'd always done. And that's even when I was managing teams or leading teams, managing businesses, leading teams. And so what did I do there? Well, it was a matter of starting before I was ready. Like eventually I was buying properties, and one of the biggest challenges by sometimes going faster than not getting everything done was it cost me about 25 grand because I didn't read an inspection report. I will never do that again. If I'm going to get the inspection report, guess what? I'm going to read through it because that didn't feel nice. But yeah, so that's what I did to kind of break through that paralysis analysis. And the third thing is something I'm actually working on right now. There's a challenge to scale, right? The challenge to scale is right now, as I'm a happy employee and I love what I do outside of the corporate, right? Is being able to scale, being able to help more people, right? Because there are a lot of people that are out there that are like me, and people think, well, yeah, you're fine. You're working in a really big corporation. You're earning a great salary. And sometimes you just need to be able to get in touch with that person and say, hey, look, you know what? You don't have to just keep working more and more and more and more and missing your children's ballet recitals or their soccer matches or basketball games, or you don't have to not be able to take your spouse, your loved one to whatever it is you said you were going to do. There are actually ways to be able to do that. And so right now, what I'm working on is actually making sure that I have the right who on my team to help me to scale effectively, right? And that third point is something that's a work in progress, but we're getting better at it. We still have some work to do, but we need to be able to scale, to be able to reach those people who are high wage earners that are struggling right now because they have to find a better way. They have to find a different way where they can have more control over their financial life so that they can have the freedom of time to be able to do the things that they really want to do. But that third one's still a work in progress.
Well, and I think it always will be because you are a grower. You've been growing businesses your entire career, and that's why you're in the role you're in corporate. And so let's see if we can scale for yourself. I know that you can. It's just a matter of the universe catching up with you. And so I'm gonna shift from the really positive thing to a little bit of pain. Was there a point when everything was on the line? Did you have like this rock bottom moment on this journey?
Um, I don't know if it was absolutely rock bottom, but there have been moments where there's strain in the relationships, right? Or that I'm too focused on. Well, I'm not focused enough on my wife, or not focused enough on my kids, or on being able to call my parents. Because there's a balance, right? Because when you're um, moving towards something that you think that you love, there is a tendency for those of us that are that way, that we just go all in, is that we can forget about that little smile, that little hug, that 1 hour without doing anything else, right? And so when I've lost my way, it's always nice to get those reminders. And those reminders come from my wife, from my kids, from my mom, from my dad. Well, not my dad so much, he usually lets me go, but everybody else, and they remind me, and it's those moments, Jerome, where I feel like, man, I'm doing all this stuff because I actually want to have more time to spend with you and do this. And I'm doing my actions. I love what you said earlier, like my actions were completely the opposite. And when there's that misalignment, it causes me pain. So I know it's causing the people that I love pain. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say it's rock bottom, but it's just these kind of like these reminders that are like, Billy, you gotta wake up, man, because you're doing this so that you can spend the time, create the experiences with the people that you love the most. So, yeah.
Phenomenal answer, Billy. And so let's move into the health because I mean, performing at such a high level, you got to be doing some things to keep your body and your mental together. Do you have any routines related to health that you'd be willing to share with the listeners?
Yeah, sure, man. I am a big believer. I think it's maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I read a book by Hal Elrod, The Miracle Morning. And so I am a big believer in savers. Like in this room where I am now, I start my day here. It's like very important. Like I don't sleep very much anyway, but the few hours that I do sleep, I'm a very, very deep sleeper. But most importantly, like when I start the day, I need that first hour or so for myself. Like I don't want to see anybody. It's not that I can't, but when I'm in the zone, I want to get up. I just want that silence in the morning. I meditate, right? I'm going to get my meditation in. And it can be as quick as like 4 or 5 minutes up to half an hour, right? I'm not someone who's learned how to really do the long meditations yet. Then after that, I want to talk to myself about the things that are positive. I'm affirming my day. Boom, 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 boom. Like I'm going right at it. And then I don't know if you can see, well, I don't have it here. I have it on my phone, but I have I visualize, I think about the things that I want to become, like the things that I want to do and the things that I want to have every single morning. I look at it, boom, it's right in front of me. Then I do a couple push-ups, sit-ups. And then mornings like today, I go out and I run half an hour, 45 minutes in the morning. I also make sure that I'm reading. I'm actually reading 2 books right now. One's Free to Focus, and the other is Halftime. So I'm reading those 2 books right now, and I also scribe, or I write in the morning and just leave things, my thoughts in my journals. And it's really interesting to actually go back and look and see what I've been writing. Like if I looked 3 years ago, kind of where I was, where my mind was, where my thoughts were, a year ago, 6 months ago, it's this constant evolution. So being able to start my morning that way is something that's important, not just from a mental perspective, but also from a physical perspective. And my goal is to get out and do cardio 3 to 4 days a week, because I've got a kind of a bad back here. But yeah, so hopefully that answers what you're looking for.
And that's outstanding, right? That ritual in the morning just gets everything off. And maybe this is for you too. If you don't do your morning ritual, does your day feel a little wobbly, a little
Yes.
unbalanced?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some people say a whole hour. You're spending an hour on yourself in the morning.
If I don't spend that hour in the morning, it's just bad for everybody, because I'm not on my game. And if I'm not on my game, then I can't be the best Billy possible, right? And at this point in life, I'm not disturbing anybody. It's great because I can get so much done, and it's literally just me. Like I'm not doing anything. I'm not brain powering. I'm not thinking. It's just me, and I want that, right? That's what I want, and I'm willing to make the sacrifice to get up. Fortunately, I don't have an alarm clock. My body just wakes. I just wake up. I haven't had an alarm clock and I don't know how long, but yeah, it's something that I want, something I need. Every once in a while I don't. And, depends if my kids are hanging out with me first thing in the morning, that's okay. Sometimes it doesn't then distort my whole morning, but I definitely notice the difference just internally if I don't start my day out that way versus when I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I call it getting centered. You come to
Mm.
balance and then you go off and do the things. All right,
Yeah.
so let's talk about a little bit of prosperity, man. This is the reward for the arduous journey you've been on.
Mm.
Like how talk about like the things that you value most. And prosperity doesn't have to be resources like money or property, but like
Mm.
what's the reward for all the what I call sacrifice that you've made over this time?
Right now is no, well, I feel fortunate. Like a lot of things come to my mind, like the fact that that my wife and kids tell me consistently that they love me. That helps me to know that something I'm doing right. And that for me is fulfilling. I'm still demanding. I know that I can do more. The fact that I have the love of my parents, that I have both of my parents here, my stepmom, that they get that love, and my brother and sister, that they give that love to me as well. I mean, that for me it's huge. It's huge, because at the end of the day, it's like that's really what it's about. Because the financial aspect, and I don't say this lightly because I know what it's like to live with no financial resources, or at least you think that way. Once you realize how the game works, then you're not as focused on that part, and you're more focused on like what are the experiences and what are the things that can happen that we shouldn't take for granted. So just the love and the input that I get from my wife, kids, my brother and sister, my mom and dad, and my stepmom, those to me are things that are amazing. The fact that I'm able to live a life based on the choices that I want to make, and it's not, I don't feel that I have to do anything. Like I'm doing the things because I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed. I've worked really hard to be able to make choices, right? And that's something that I think it's easy to forget or to not really think about that much. But yeah, I mean, I just the fact that I can make choices in my life is I feel super fortunate about that. So those are the things that come to the top of my mind in terms of prosperity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing that I always look for when I talk to people is consistency, right? And we think about your red pill moment.
Mm,
What you didn't say, but you just said in this answer right here is when I walked out that door on his third birthday, I didn't feel like I was acting in love. Now, sure, I woke
mm,
him up, we opened the presents, but we
yeah,
were modifying it instead of
mm,
letting him have his moment,
mm,
right? And so now I'm pivoting and making adjustments, and my stated values is my family is the top priority. And so prosperity for me is receiving love from them. That's the
mm,
ultimate compensation for you. That's
mm,
beautiful, man. And I
mm,
don't know a whole lot of men who are willing to, get on a recording and say that, right? Because it's not typically, no, I got a Ferrari, or, I got this big house or whatever else. I talked to David Messler, and he actually said those things
mm,
when he was talking to his wife about why she should be happy. And
mm.
he's like, this big house is Ferrari. And he's like, in hindsight, I realized how silly that was. But in the moment, that's what was guiding me. And to your point about, hey, when you understand how the game is played, like all that stuff kind of goes by the wayside. And you realize, like, this is what's really important. So this is what you should be paying attention to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
So
yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, I'll share with you, camera on, camera not on. It's just what's on my heart.
yeah, I mean, it's the authenticity of it, and that's why only certain people get to come on the Dreamcatchers podcast, those who are going to be real. And so, as we start winding this thing down, man,
Mm.
was there anything along the way that tried to pull you back into that old way of thinking, that old frame? And if so, how'd you overcome it?
Yeah, when you make $25,000 mistakes when you're getting started in real estate, that's one of the things where you think to yourself, well, why am I actually, hang on, what am I doing again? Shouldn't I just stay here and do what I've been doing? That was a real learning moment. That was frustrating. Um, and there are times when I want us to be going faster. I want us to be uh, in a different place than we are. And then I have to kind of take a step back and say, look, I've made some decisions that are, if I change some decisions, if I stop doing certain things, right? I think you understand what I'm talking about. Then it will allow me to do more time and more energy, scale faster, right? And so sometimes I sit back and I think about those things. One's very just concrete, factual. You lose 25 grand because you didn't read or interpret or take the time to actually do something about what you read, or you just glanced over it. That's something that can make you want to go back and just stay doing what you've been doing. Um, and then when you want to be going faster, or you want your team to be scaling faster or in a more efficient way, and you're part of the reason that that's not moving, yeah, that can be frustrating. It's just a matter at this point, when it's in your mind, it's just a matter of, how do I dedicate more time to make sure that we get to the right position, and more importantly, how do we get the right people on board that can make sure that we're moving in the right direction. So those things pulling back, I guess, on a personal level. But I've never really thought about not being here, or not, or, going back stateside, or any of that kind of stuff, because I've, although there are moments where I probably more early on, where I was frustrated just at a personal level, because I wasn't wanting to understand the local norms and the local way of doing things. I wanted the local way of doing things to be my way of doing things, which is where I came from. And once you get through that, you recognize that, that's just kind of a twisted way of thinking. And so I kind of got out of my own way, and there hasn't really been anything other than those kind of maybe two examples where, they tried to bring me back in, tried to pull me back in, or put that doubt in my mind to say, woof, this is a little bit too much. Why don't I just stay here where I'm cozy and comfort? No, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite.
Ooh, I love it. The clarity there, man. I mean, you thought through all that stuff pretty deeply. So maybe that's just this time in the morning during the savers. Okay. So, we're down to the final four, man. These are going to be rapid fire questions, and then we'll wrap it up with, well, I won't tell you the last question. We'll wrap it up.
All right.
So here we go with the final four, man. What is the biggest difference in your approach to life today than before you took the red pill?
I'm not really afraid to get out there and say what I think, or especially to say what's on my heart. I'm not afraid to do that. I think before I was kind of don't not say the wrong thing.
What are you most grateful for?
The love that I receive from the people that I love, man. I don't think there's anything more important than that. Just receiving that love, because it gives me a lot of energy, and yeah, that's the most important thing.
What dream are you most focused on catching next?
Being the next one is living between Europe and the United States, doing that when my family and I want to be doing that, and being able to do that in a way that's impacting lives on both sides of the pond. That's what, yeah.
And the final question in this significant rapid fire section is, what gift are you giving the world?
What gift am I giving the world? Wow. I think it's just being me, being honest, and being somebody who is here to, just to give back. Been really blessed, man. Been really, really blessed. And I've realized now I'm at the point in my life where it's time to give back. And that includes love and time.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely true, Billy. And I'm gonna love on you a little bit, man, because I just am absolutely blown away with your talent, your approach, and just the level of polish, man. Every time I see you, man, you look like you're fresh out of a photo shoot for a high fashion magazine. I know it's not a funny suit.
There you go.
But it is like just super like put together. I'm like, man, like if I grow up, like I'm like super wealthy, I want to be like Billy Kills, man. Just the way he shows up and the fluidity of it. Guys, if you're not listening to this thing on YouTube, you gotta pull the video out on this one. I know most of
check us out.
You gotta get on YouTube and check this guy out. He is dapper as all can be.
But that's a lot of pressure, man. That's a lot of pressure.
Come on, man. We know it's real.
If you would allow me, and I know you want to wrap up things, but so you and I, we've not known one another that long, right? But I continue to watch what you do, and what I appreciate about you, Jerome, is that you are very sincere in your approach. So we're here on the camera now, and it doesn't matter if the camera's on or the camera's off. Like, it's the same Jerome, and you are somebody who cares about and demonstrates connecting people. You're someone who is also not afraid to challenge people in order to make them better. You are constantly looking to bring people up, and I think to be able to do that is something that is really, really cool. And knowing about your story as well, that you've also recognized that you don't have to fit into some predefined kind of mold in order to be successful, and being able to show that, demonstrate that to other people, lead by example, and not be afraid to lead by following, is something that I appreciate about you. I'm looking forward to actually being able to meet with you face to face at some point in time when we can kind of get out of this world, man. But I do just want to let you know that I appreciate that about you, and you're gonna keep going out there impacting so many lives, man. It's awesome.
Billy, man, I'll send you the check, brother. I appreciate you on so many
I
levels.
don't want the check, bro. Just keep doing more of what you're doing.
I, I sincerely appreciate it. And with that, I want to ask you the final question. It's our wrap up question. What's
Yep.
the one thing you want the listeners to take away from this episode?
I think, if you've listened to this episode and you've been thinking to yourself that you want to do something that maybe the people that are around you don't think is the right thing for you to do, but you feel it in your gut in the same way that, I was feeling really uncomfortable about leaving the United States, going to Valencia, Spain. There was just, I didn't know what it was. And it wasn't like people were saying, go, go, go. And when I needed help, people weren't able to help me financially. But if you've got it in your gut, if you've got it in your heart, if you've got it in your mind, even if nobody else around you thinks that you should be doing it, there's a reason that you have that feeling. There's a reason that you have that thought, and don't be afraid to follow it. You never know. Like I said, and my 1 year sabbaticals ended up being 20 years, a number of different country, great relationships, and there's a lot that can be waiting for you on the other side. So I would say, yeah, just listen to yourself.
Beautiful. Amazing way to wrap this episode up. Billy, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. And to the listeners, your dreams should be real. We'll talk soon.